In the small town of Harrow's End, nestled in a valley where the mountains cradled the sky, winter was more than a season, it was a presence. The air bit at fingertips, and the snow piled high, muffling the world into a quiet that felt both peaceful and heavy. For Clara Hensley, a 68-year-old widow who had lived in Harrow's End her entire life, this winter felt heavier than most. Clara's days were simple. She woke early, boiled water for tea, and sat by the window of her modest cottage, watching the world through frost-edged glass. Her husband Tom had passed 3 years ago, leaving behind a quiet house and a garden that no longer bloomed with his care. Clara filled her time volunteering at the town's community center, organizing book drives and knitting scarves for the children's shelter. But lately, her hands trembled more, her knees ached, and the loneliness crept in like the cold. One morning, as Clara sipped her chamomile tea, she noticed a figure trudging through the snow across the street. It was a young man, no older than 30, his coat too thin for the weather, his shoulders hunched against the wind. He carried a tattered backpack and paused to rummage through a dumpster behind the bakery. Clara's heart tightened. Harrow's End wasn't a big town, but it wasn't immune to hardship. She'd seen people fall through the cracks before, but something about this man, his careful movements, the way he glanced around as if hoping no one would notice, stayed with her. She set her mug down and pulled on her coat. The cold stung her cheeks as she crossed the street, her boots crunching in the snow. "Excuse me," she called softly, not wanting to startle him. The man froze, his hand halfway into the dumpster. He turned, his face weathered but kind, with dark eyes that held a flicker of caution. "I'm not causing trouble," he said quickly. "Just looking for something to eat." "I know," Clara said, her voice gentle. "I'm Clara. I live across the street. I've got some soup on the stove if you're hungry." He hesitated, his breath visible in the cold air. "I don't take charity," he said, but his voice wavered, betraying his hunger. "It's not charity," Clara replied. "It's just soup, and maybe some company if you're up for it." After a long pause, he nodded. "I'm Elias," he said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. A warm hearth, a heavy heart inside Clara's cottage. The smell of vegetable soup filled the air. Elias sat at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a steaming bowl. He ate slowly at first, then with a quiet urgency, as if he hadn't had a proper meal in days. Clara sat across from him, knitting a scarf, giving him space to feel at ease. "You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to," she said, her needles clicking softly. "But I'm a good listener if you need one." Elias glanced up, his eyes searching hers. "Not much to tell," he said. "Lost my job in the city a year ago, then my apartment. Been moving from place to place since. Thought I'd try a smaller town, see if things were easier." Clara nodded, her heart aching for the weight he carried. "Harrow's End is a good place," she said. "People look out for each other here, but it's not always easy to start over." Elias set his spoon down, his expression distant. "I used to fix things," he said quietly. "Cars mostly. Worked at a garage, loved it, taking something broken and making it run again. It felt like I was doing something that mattered." "What happened?" Clara asked, her voice soft. "Shop closed. Owner couldn't keep up with the bills. I tried finding work, but..." He shrugged. "It's hard when you don't have an address. People look at you differently." Clara's needles paused. She thought of Tom, who had been a mechanic too. His hands always stained with grease, his smile bright as he fixed neighbors' cars for free when they couldn't pay. My husband was a mechanic, she said. He'd have liked you. Elias managed a small smile, but it faded quickly. I don't know how to get back to that, he admitted. Feels like I'm stuck in this fog, like I can't see the way out. Clara leaned forward, her eyes steady. Fog clears, she said. Sometimes you just need a light to guide you. The Lantern Project. The next day, Clara walked to the community center, her mind buzzing with an idea. She'd been thinking about Elias all night, about the spark in his eyes when he talked about fixing cars. She remembered the old lanterns Tom used to tinker with, rusted, forgotten things he'd find at flea markets and restore until they glowed warmly. Clara had kept them in the shed after his death, unable to part with them. Maybe they could be more than memories. At the community center, Clara gathered a small group of volunteers, retirees like herself, a few young families, and a teacher named Marla who ran the after-school program. I've got an idea, Clara said, her voice firm despite her nerves. There's a young man in town who needs a hand up, not a handout. He's good with his hands, used to fix cars. I've got a shed full of old lanterns that could use some love. What if we start a project to restore them? Sell them at the winter market, raise some money to help folks like him get back on their feet. Marla's eyes lit up. We could involve the kids, she said. Teach them about fixing things, give them a sense of purpose. And we could donate some of the lanterns to the shelter, added Mr. Patel, a retired electrician who volunteered at the center. They could use some light in there. The group agreed, and Clara felt a warmth she hadn't felt in months. She went back to Elias that afternoon, finding him near the bakery again. I've got a proposition, she said. No charity. Work. You help us fix up some old lanterns and we'll split the proceeds from the winter market. You in? Elias looked skeptical. Lanterns? I don't know anything about those. You know how to fix things, Clara said. That's enough. Hands that heal. Over the next few weeks, the community center became a hive of activity. Elias showed up every morning, hesitant at first, but soon he was teaching the kids how to sand rust off metal, replace wicks, and polish glass until it shone. Clara watched him come alive, his hands steady as he worked, his voice patient as he explained each step. The kids adored him, especially a shy 12-year-old named Lily, who followed him around like a shadow. You're good at this, Clara told him one evening, as they sat among scattered lantern parts. The room glowed with the soft light of their first finished pieces. Elias shrugged, but there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Feels good to do something useful again, he said. Didn't realize how much I missed it. Clara smiled. You're not just fixing lanterns, you know. You're giving these kids something to believe in, and maybe yourself too. Elias didn't respond, but he didn't need to. The way he showed up early each day, the way he laughed with Lily over a stubborn screw said enough. As the winter market approached, the group worked tirelessly. Mr. Patel wired the lanterns for electric bulbs, making them safer for homes. Marla's students painted delicate designs on the glass, stars, trees, hearts. Clara knitted scarves to sell alongside the lanterns, each one a burst of color against the snow. The project wasn't just about Elias anymore. It was about the town coming together, each person adding their light to the effort. The winter market. Night of the winter market was crisp and clear, the town square aglow with string lights and the chatter of neighbors. The lantern table was a beacon, its warm glow drawing people in. Clara stood beside Elias, watching as families admired the lanterns, each one a testament to hard work and hope. Lily's mother, a single parent who worked 2 jobs, bought a lantern painted with stars. "This is for Lily," she said, her voice thick with emotion. She hasn't stopped talking about this project. It's given her something to be proud of. Elias ducked his head, embarrassed but pleased. "She's a good kid," he said. "Smart too." By the end of the night, they'd sold nearly every lantern, raising enough money to help Elias rent a small apartment and cover supplies for the next batch. The shelter received 12 lanterns, their light transforming the drab common room into a place of warmth. Clara watched Elias shake hands with Mr. Patel, laugh with Marla, and high-five Lily, and she felt a lump in her throat. This was what Tom would have loved, a community lifting each other up one small act at a time. A new dawn winter softened into spring, and Harrow's End bloomed with possibility. Elias moved into a tiny apartment above the hardware store where the owner offered him a part-time job. The lantern project continued, with Elias teaching a weekly class at the community center. Lily was his star student, already designing her own lanterns. Clara, whose hands no longer trembled as much, found herself smiling more, her cottage less lonely with the visits from Elias and the kids. One morning, as Clara tended the garden she'd neglected since Tom's death, Elias stopped by with a gift, a small lantern. Its glass etched with a single word: hope. "Thought you might like this," he said, his voice steady. "You gave me a light when I needed it most. Figured I'd return the favor." Clara took the lantern, her eyes misty. "You didn't just return it," she said. "You made it brighter." As Elias walked away, the lantern glowed in Clara's hands, a reminder that even in the heaviest winters, kindness could light the way. And in Harrow's End, that light would keep burning, one heart at a time.